Hello there, YouTube! Scott here with my instant review of WandaVision, Episode 9, the series finale. This is going to be a fun one. So obviously I'm going to try to go through an overview before I get to the review. I'm going to point out ahead of time there were some things that I didn't particularly care for, and I will try to address them later. Probably not as they come out, because that'll be time-consuming, but here we go. Let's start this off at the beginning, which picks up right where we left off. Agatha has the twins hostage. Wanda makes her let them go, and they run off and hide. And Wanda attempts to blast Agatha a few more times, but it turns out her thing is kind of draining other witches of their power. So Wanda says, alright, hits her with a car. Smashes her right through the front window of a house. And when she goes to check, there's this fun little shot of Agatha's boots under the car, you know, like in The Wizard of Oz, except she's not in them. And Wanda sees a reflection in what window is left of what she thinks is Vision, but turns out to actually be Cataract. Now, I'm going to call him Cataract because it sounds better than saying Evil Vision. And have you ever seen somebody's eyes when they have, like, really bad cataracts? Yeah, it's like that. Basically the same color as Cataract. And, of course, Wanda thinks it's Vision, and she goes to him and quickly finds out that that's not the case when he starts trying to kill her. Like, seems like he's going to literally crush her skull. Thank goodness the real Vision shows up and blasts him. And when Wanda falls, she does a superhero landing, which was interesting. And then it's on. It's Vision versus Cataract, Wanda versus a reappeared Agatha. Now, the whole time, Monica is unfortunately watching from Agatha's house next door, being kept prisoner by Pietro. And I say it that way, and I'm going to spoil this whole thing right here, because it turns out Pietro is not Pietro, not even from the X-Men universe. Monica realizes that Agatha has control over him, and rips off the necklace he's wearing that lets her control him. And it turns out he's just a neighbor guy who lived next door to the empty lot named Ralph. Ralph Boner. And it's a little weird that Agatha kept referring to her husband Ralph, because this dude's clearly younger than her. But anyway. Vision and Cataract are duking it out over the town, and Hayward's got eyes on Cataract because of whatever technology he had. And in comes Jimmy Woo. Love this guy. He bluffs Hayward into revealing his entire plan of killing Wanda and trying to pass Cataract off as a genuine Vision. And after he's put somewhere where they think he's not going to do any harm, he picks his handcuffs and makes good on his bluff to have the FBI there inside the hour. Meanwhile, Wanda shows up Main Street in Westview, trying to find Agatha, gets hit in the back. And Agatha goes into this Scarlet Witch exposition about how there's a whole chapter about her in the Darkhold, and she's more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme, and Wanda doesn't believe any of it, so Agatha performs a little bit of magic and wakes up the citizens of Westview. And they're not happy. Apparently, they can hear Wanda's nightmares, which is a little weird. And it's messing with their heads. They're not entirely sure who they are or what's going on, and she tries to silence them, and they all wind up, like, choking with, like, red magic around their necks. And, I mean, she realizes the only way to set them free is to get rid of the hex. So, that's what she tries to do. Unfortunately, Wanda realizes that if she destroys the hex, it's going to destroy Vision and the twins. They're all falling apart right in front of her, because Billy heard, you know, in his head what was going on in the center of town, and the twins ran to help, and Vision's falling out of the sky after battling with Cataract. So Wanda gets a little bit selfish again and restores the hex. So the Maximoff family is alive, but now they have Agatha to deal with, as well as Cataract, and a small contingent of sword agents. Thankfully, this family was born for this, as Wanda and Vision tell the boys. So it splits into three parts here. The twins are tasked with taking out the military, which they do. Billy makes them all hold still. Tommy runs around with super speed, takes their guns. It's pretty cool. Hayward manages to get out of his car. he grabs a gun and goes to shoot the twins, and Monica jumps in front of them and takes the bullets. They just sort of pass through her and then fall on the ground and don't hurt her at all, except for one that gets past her, which Billy handles with his magic. And Hayward, realizing he's got almost no plans left, gets in a Humvee and backs it up to, I guess, run them down. But in from the side, hey, is that a funnel cake truck? Yes, it's Darcy, who finally shows up in this episode. The second part, a little bit more complicated. It's Vision versus Cataract, and they wind up being in the library. Cataract is told that it tells Vision that he's programmed to kill Vision. Vision points out that he's not the true Vision, and they get into a philosophical debate of all things. It's about the Ship of Theseus thought experiment, which I will not be recounting here because it will take too much time. Basically, Cataract realizes that neither of them are the true Vision. He's the closest because he has the actual body, but he doesn't have the Mind Stone. But Vision helps him out by restoring all of his memories that I guess Hayward had blocked somehow with a chip in his head. And Cataract says, "I am Vision," and leaves. That's it. Meanwhile, Agatha can't find Wanda because she disappeared somewhere. And then Wanda shows up right next to her and does that thing with her hands that she was doing in Ultron when she gave Iron Man and Thor bad memories. And she zapped Agatha back to 1693, tied to that stake. Except all of the witches that she killed are rising up and coming to life. And I'm sure Wanda thought she had it in the bag at this point, but unfortunately, all the witches turned on her and bound her to the stake. Agatha makes Wanda a deal. If Wanda will give her her magic, Agatha will restore the hex the way it should be, with no problems, and her family will be able to live there, happily, I guess, ever after. But of course I forgot to mention that in this little flashback, that Scarlet Witch headpiece appears for the first time on Wanda's head, and I guess that, makes her realize she is the Scarlet Witch. So, she breaks free and attacks Agatha, and blasts them both back into the real world, and then up into the sky. I say real world, it's inside the hex, and there's a magic fight. Wanda's blasting magic at Agatha over and over. Sometimes she's hitting her, sometimes she's missing, just saying, take it all, because Agatha wants all of her power. And it gets to the point where Wanda is totally drained. Agatha probably feels more alive than she has in centuries. And she's set to cast the spell that will restore the hex, and tells her that it will be permanent and always flawed, just like her. And the wave of her hands, nothing happens. Now I'm going to say this right now, I saw this part coming. I'm just going to put it out there. The clouds start clearing, and Agatha realizes that when Wanda blasted magic at her that missed her and hit the walls of the hex, she was putting up the same kind of runes that Agatha had in her basement. And as we know, within a given space, only the witch who casts those runes can perform her magic. I knew this was going to happen because in the last episode, Agatha went into so much detail about it, and at the beginning of this episode, when they did the whole previously on bit, they mentioned it again. Plus, that part in Agatha's basement, it looked like it was in a small six-sided space, so I thought to myself at the time, well, couldn't Wanda just cast those runes on the 6 walls of the hex? But she doesn't. And then Wanda drains all of her magic out of Agatha, and all of Agatha's magic out of her, and the Scarlet Witch manifests for real for the first time. And she gets the headpiece and a cool new costume, and, lowers her back down to the ground where everything should be back to normal, except she decides to give Agatha a little bit of a magical lobotomy. Basically, she touches her and turns her back into Agnes for real. Now, this is the part where it gets serious. As the Maximoffs head back to their house, the hex starts shrinking inward again, and everything goes back to normal on the outside. The circus becomes the little sword pop-up facility, so on and so forth. It's nighttime by the time they get home, except on the outside world it's actually day. Like, you can see it as the hex shrinks. It's daytime. Wanda and Vision put the twins to bed, and they talk about how family's never really gone. And before the twins go to sleep, Wanda says to them, "Thanks for choosing me to be your mom." And they smile and they go to bed, and it's poignant but still a little bit unsettling because as the door closed, you can see the sky outside becoming tinged with red because the hex is getting closer. And before Wanda and Vision can say goodbye, they have a conversation. Vision's not entirely sure what he is, and Wanda tells him that he's the piece of the Mind Stone that still resides within her, among, other things, like her emotions. And he cries an actual tear. And he points out that he's been a voice without a body without humanity, and now a memory, and what's he going to be after this? But they both figure there's a good chance that they'll be seeing each other again because they've had to say goodbye before. And as they're standing there looking at each other, the hex closes in on the house, and it starts falling apart while simultaneously regressing back through the episodes, the way the town did when Wanda was releasing the hex that time. And just before Vision's gone for good, he says, "So long, darling." And Wanda's left standing in the middle of the empty lot during the day. Exactly where she was, when this started, which kind of made me wonder if they'd traveled back in time, but that had nothing to do with it. So Wanda walks into the center of town. Why she didn't drive, I don't know. Her car was right there. And everybody in Westview is looking at her funny because, obviously. She talks a little bit with Monica, who reassures her that she would have done the same thing if she had had the power. And Wanda flies away just as the FBI is showing up. Oddly enough, as the sun is setting, she looks back at Westview, and then she's gone. Cut to the mid-credits scene. While Wu is cleaning up in Westview, a random agent shows up and says Monica needs to be debriefed in the theater for some reason. And when they go into the theater, this agent reveals herself to be a Skrull. And says she was sent by an old friend of Monica's mom's, which I assume means Nick Fury, and that Monica gets to go to space, which she's wanted to do this whole time. And cut to the end credits scene, which has Wanda living in a small house in the middle of nowhere. I think it's supposed to be like she's living somewhere in the north in Canada, like Wolverine did when he went into hiding. You see her sitting on her porch before going inside when she hears her tea kettle whistling. But then the camera pans into the bedroom where another version of her, presumably the Scarlet Witch version, is possibly in the astral plane studying the Darkhold. And then just before it goes to black, she hears the twins calling for her. Now I'm going to try to keep this quick because I don't know if I'm even going to be able to shoot or put this video together. Starting off with what I liked, Randall Park and Catherine Hahn. These two went above and beyond in the show, and I love it. Jimmy Woo, the FBI agent, is not quite up to the level of how cool Agent Coulson is/was, but I so want to see more of him in the MCU. He is perfect. Love it. Obviously, Catherine Hahn's kind of stuck as Agnes now, but I mean, it's possible she could come back as Agatha. Who knows? So for a couple of things that I didn't like, one was the protection room thing, because like I said, I saw that coming. I was saying it during the battle, while I was watching it. Why didn't she cast the runes on the hex, and then Agatha won't be able to use her magic? I mean, I can't possibly be the only one who saw that coming, right? Then there was Darcy, who showed up in exactly one scene, and it seemed like she was going to be playing a bigger role in this whole thing, but she was very underutilized coming towards the end. But the part that got me the most was Pietro. So obviously, they, red herringed us. That was not an attempt to bring mutants into the MCU at all. Agatha didn't reach across dimensions to find somebody who looked like Wanda's brother. It was just the guy who happened to be next door to the vacant lot, who apparently kind of looked like him, and absolutely looked like the Quicksilver from the X-Men universe. What was the point? You could have gotten anybody for that. I don't know. Also, Vision. No, sorry, Cataract. Like he specifically said, "I am Vision," and flew away. But he said before that his mission was to kill Vision. So did Cataract go off and kill himself? Is he the new Vision of the MCU? Is he going to change colors? Because that would be good. I don't know. But all told, I liked this show for the nostalgia of the, TV homages, and the story was compelling, brilliantly performed by everyone. I'm never going to see that actor who played Hayward as anything other than a dick after this. And I guess this is what we get until, a couple weeks from now when Disney Plus brings us Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I'm sure I will also be instant reviewing. But until then, see you guys next time.